Today, on Locked On Phoenix Suns, we gave our instant reaction to the Brian Gregory press conference already today. What does alignment actually mean? Is there any silver lining to the buzzword of all buzzwords that we heard over and over on Tuesday? And some other details from our first impressions of the new GM. Let's go.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Phoenix Suns. I'm Brendon Kleen, a staff writer at Awful Announcing and a credentialed Suns media member. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen here on this Thursday. Don't forget, Locked On Suns is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Just click that follow or subscribe button. Do what thousands of other Suns fans have already done. Become an everydayer and get locked on to the Phoenix Suns right here each and every day. Today's episode brought to you by the Gametime app. Download it now, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. The response from the Big Three, details on the coaching search, and much more. Joining me to break it down, as always, from the Wild West Valley, my fellow Suns credentialed media member. How are we feeling, Ben Garcia?
Still awful. But I know we're going to get into all the alignment talk and what it actually means, and that's great. But I want to start off with a little trivia question, Brendon. Do you know how many times Allen Iverson said practice in that viral clip of him, whether he was, some people speculate maybe he wasn't in the right mindset? You know how many times he said practice? Would you like to take a guess?
A lot.
One less time than Brian Gregory said alignment yesterday. Brian Gregory, 23 times. Allen Iverson, 22 times. So I thought yesterday sounded a little familiar. Now, a little different, but same kind of concept. And so I don't think either of them knew what they were talking about when that happened. So I'll let you take the floor now.
Yeah, that Allen Iverson thing, if you actually listen to the full version of what he said, is actually pretty thoughtful, I would say. I don't know if people usually, I'm not joking, people don't watch the full thing. Yeah,
I don't watch the whole
if
thing.
you listen to the full video, he has actually I'm not gonna let the jokes come in, because I think it's actually, I always try to, when that comes up with fans, I'm always like, watch the full video, because he talks about a lot of, I'm a media nerd, so I care about this stuff. We're taking an AI departure really quick before we dive into Brian Gregory. But he actually has some pretty interesting thoughts on like the way that the media covered him and made some assumptions about who he was as a person, and the fact that they're not actually there every day to see the kind of person that he is. So I think it's a good clip.
Now you're gonna make me go and watch You're gonna make me go and watch the full video after this. I haven't seen that video since I was
5, maybe 10 minutes.
Yeah, I haven't seen that full video since I was 15 years old, watching eating Cheerios, watching Stuart Scott break it down on ESPN.
Yeah.
Booyah. So I'll have to look into that. But that's funny. Either way, Brian Gregory one more time than Allen Iverson. Really hammering.
We got to do the breakdown next to the Herm Edwards playoffs. That's the other all-timer. See how many times that adds up. But yeah, so alignment was definitely the word of the day on Tuesday at the Verizon 5G Performance Center, where Brian Gregory made his debut as Suns general manager. So this was obviously, this is what we had to come back with, Ben, as we were going to do kind of a next day response to this whole thing. And I have a report that we can dive into here in a second that speaks to some of this, but alignment is something that can be good, right? Like, I don't think anyone's discounting that people being on the same page in a really high stakes decision is a good thing. Of course it is. But I struggle to understand why that was the problem and how the new setup is going to fix that. Maybe there's a lot we don't know. Maybe James Jones was really butting heads with Ishbia or Bartelstein or any of these other people that have been in this front office, and it was becoming untenable. But you can't say that, right? Like Gregory can't tell us the specifics, and it's not obvious to us on the outside why there was such a need for alignment, right? They haven't made that case to us that was the problem. And so if you present that alignment word as the solution, it doesn't really do much for me to think that things are going to get better, because the big decisions, the Beal trade, the Durant trade, I should say, the Tyus Jones acquisition, the coaching hires, I think we all have a pretty good idea of who was the driving force, Ishbia and or Bartelstein, and that's the voice that won out. So I have a hard time thinking that alignment was the problem or that it's going to be the solution. And no matter how hard I try, Ben, I end up coming back to this fact of it feels like you are preaching this concept, and it's actually the number one thing fans don't want to see right now, which is Gregory being aligned with Ishbia. I think most fans want somebody who's going to not be aligned with Ishbia and be a no man and be his own man and get this thing going in a different direction. I still, after 24 hours, have no idea why this even was the buzzword, let alone what the hell it's going to mean.
Well, there you go. That was the last part that I was going to hit on. You know, the alignment aspect of things can be actually a really good thing. I mean, there's a lot of good organizations, the Ravens, I mean, for a long time, the Celtics. I mean, you look across sports, the Red Sox, the Yankees, these teams all have alignment, but it's in the terms of everyone in their front office is all in common thinking and in lockstep with what they want to do. And I kind of hit on this yesterday. The general manager is going to make the final calls on a player, on what they want, not what they want to run, but on a player, on who they want to look like, all that kind of stuff. Yes, but everyone else is behind him. The problem is there's also organizations, and, you know, you're looking at the Browns or the Wizards, or, I mean, for the Oakland A's or Sacramento A's at this point, where these organizations all have alignment, but it's all the wrong alignment, and it's not the right way that you're supposed to build any franchise. And so the Suns, you're right, taking it all the way full circle to the Matt Ishbia thing. Sure, they might be in lockstep and alignment on what they want to do. The issue is the head honcho in charge, which now, pants pulled down, curtain moved to the side, is Matt Ishbia that we saw yesterday. And you're right, that's the alignment we don't want to see. If anything, I want the opposite of what he's been doing. So I don't understand why that was the buzzword of the day. It didn't make any sense. And that was the point as well, is people tried to ask, but I don't think that's too rude. I was going to say, I'm not sure he's capable of finding that answer. But by that, I mean, I'm not sure he knew the answer. And so with that being said, it feels like the Suns just went in with the buzzword and hope we all ate it up, but that's not what happened.
So there's another report this morning from Brandon Jackson. That's his name, right? Scoop B. Brandon Robinson. Where am I getting Jackson? Brandon Robinson. Longtime NBA insider. Does his own thing digitally. Like, I know you can kind of wonder, but this was so specific. I absolutely believe it, right? He reported Wednesday morning, quote, multiple league sources and reports indicate that the final calls on Dunn and Iguodala weren't made by Gregory, but rather by assistant general manager Gerald Madkins, who joined the Suns in 2023 after a similar role with the New York Knicks and brought nearly 2 decades of personnel and scouting experience to the table. Sources confirm that Madkins and their personnel team, I won't say all these random people's names, were central in pushing for the selections of Dunn and Iguodala, valuing their defensive upside and cultural fit within a roster built around Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal. Sources say that if Gregory would have picked, he would have chosen Kyle Filipowski. All of the people, 4 people, Madkins and 3 others, according to this report, Ben, are also now out of the organization.
God, that's bad.
So here's the bottom line on this to me. One, it adds a little bit of doubt to this credit that the Suns are insisting that we buy, that Gregory was the dude who picked up, who had the great idea to take Dunn and Oso. Obviously, that matters. But it also tells me, because James Jones had a type in the draft, and neither of those guys were his type. So it tells me that if Jones was the guy that was in the way of this alignment, and now he's gone, and we're supposed to think that now things are going to be somehow better just because of that, well, this report would have me believe, Ben, that he wasn't even being listened to in the first place. Right? Like, he wasn't getting in the way of decisions in the first place. And it's just like, what does saying that things are going to be aligned, who does that even put the blame on right now? And what about that is going to make things better? This is just exhibit A of how none of it is really adding up. And I just want to hear why it's going to be a good front office, right? Like I just want to, like, if anything, reward the people who made 2 really good draft picks. Now they're gone. Like, it's just goofy. It's such a dumb thing to be focused on, but we have no choice because that's all that he could talk about yesterday.
Yeah, and I know people at times, they see this report and what you can think whatever you want about Scoopy. I have a actual decent relationship with him. I've had him on at Fox Sports 910. He's pretty dialed in terms of the Arizona sports aspect of things. So I read this and it was so detailed, as you had mentioned as well. It was things I was like, oh man, that's not good. But the biggest thing that you had said was the other guys wanted Dunn and Oso Ighodaro. I'm not even going to act like I remember their names. He wanted Kyle Filipowski, and Kyle Filipowski fell in the draft. He had issues that people were kind of concerned about. So not only was he probably not a great fit for the Suns at that time, but he also was not a cultural fit with all the baggage or whatever that could have came with him. Not to mention he's also a two-way player right now too. So there is alignment. I don't doubt that. I think everyone is of the same belief what they want to do.
Can I tell you the last? Can I tell you the last quote in this article? At least in the section about the draft. Yes. It says he wrote, quote, "This is Scoopy writing. There's a belief that no one knows who's in charge," one high-ranking league source said. And then the quote from that high-ranking source in the article verbatim is, "This is a horror movie." Now, it sounds like Scoopy got some of this info from people who are a little bit spited. So, of course, they might be a little nasty about the situation. But we talked about the reaction to this whole thing on Monday, and it was like we were struggling to find anything close to positive, and most of them were even worse than ours. This is just one more thing that says, I don't even know if the alignment that they're talking about is there. And again, to reiterate it from my end, I don't even know what it would matter if it was there. Let's get to some more from Gregory's own mouth at the press conference related to the 3 stars on this team and their reaction to his hire next. First, today's show is brought to you by Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time, and with Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. My mother-in-law was like a project manager IT kind of freelancer for a while before she eventually retired, and this was the number one thing she would always complain to me about as a freelance worker herself, which was that she just always had to be scouring and cold calling and working her relationships to try to get jobs because it was hard to find where the stuff was coming from. Upwork puts that all in one place and solves that problem so businesses can post what they need and people like her can find it. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com to connect with top talent and grow your business today. Today's episode also brought to you by the Gametime app, the best place to buy any ticket, and there's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game this time of year. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena, and with Gametime, you can be part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Gametime makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets even when demand is sky high. Now, we here in the Valley of the Sun don't get any of that this year because we can't have nice things, but You can see anything you want. Concerts, comedy, theater, whatever you love, Gametime has that as well. It's concert season. Everybody seems to be touring. All the big artists, catch them. Even on the second hand, it can be a great value in a good spot using Gametime. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, Ben. So you were there at the press conference for Brian Gregory a little longer than I was, and you heard the response that he had regarding some of the best players on this team, the stars on this team, two of whom might be on the outs this summer. But his responses were a little bit in the opposite direction. So Gregory said that one of the first people to call him after he was promoted was Devin Booker. They have a relationship dating back to when Gregory recruited him out of ding, 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 Michigan, of course. And Kevin Durant apparently, had a very positive reaction, embraced him, whatever. They seem to be on good terms as well. And then he said he had dinner with Bradley Beal last week. I think he said last Thursday. So what did you make of how the big three, quote unquote, reacted to a move that shocked all of us?
Listen, you're confused about the alignment. I'm even more confused about how the big three really responded to this guy becoming the GM. Not so much Bradley Beal, because all he did is said he's had a nice conversation with him. He went to dinner with him, whatever. Kevin Durant, he said he hugged him and embraced him and was happy for him. And I don't get it. Because then
I was surprised that KD was here.
They said he had hugged him in the weight room. He was working out in the weight room. So that led me to believe that when you had said that, because I thought of that too, could this be a KD and Devin Booker thing? Because they would keep the core of those two together. Booker, I kind of understand. And it's really important that he's in lockstep with them. And it seems like he has a good relationship with Devin Booker, which matters a lot. Honestly, the one that confused me the most was Kevin Durant, because he saw him in the weight room, gave him a hug. Clearly sounds like he has a good relationship with him. So I don't know what that means for KD. I mean, I guess it can't mean anything bad. I'm not ruling out that he gets traded, but it was really confusing because, again, we didn't get any clarity of, well, we're going to explore options. They were non-committal to pretty much everything outside of that, which was we have a really good relationship with those guys. And Ishbia kind of outed Beal in the last press conference. And this one, he was like, yeah, I went to dinner. I have a great relationship. So I didn't get it, man. I still can't put the two and two together. What about you?
Yeah, I'm not going to, like you, I'm not going to say that this means anything for any of those guys. But what I will say is that it is a good sign that he has good relationships with them. Even if Durant and Beal are gone, it's better to be on to have those guys' ear and have their respect than to not. I think you're going to be in a better position to orchestrate a trade, or if we're in a situation in the summer where we're talking about the Suns buying Beal out and they need to say, hey, can you give us back whatever you make on your next contract and some of those shenanigans we've talked about? Well, it's a lot easier to make that ask if you actually have a relationship with the person. And so that brings me to the biggest thing that I feel like I am going to say I can glean from this is I feel like he's a likable people person.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
That seems to be true, right? And so that's a quality. He seems to be big on player development and leadership and things like that. And I can buy that based on some of the things that just getting a feel for how he is and some of these secondhand stories. I can see how, the rest of the front office would want to listen to him. I can see how a young player would get after it based on, him kind of coaching them through some of these early career obstacles and, mentality shift that they have to have coming in and starting from scratch as rookies and things like that. I can see that. And I think it's good to have those relationships from top to bottom. But again, that's not the only job of a GM, but I am willing to give him the credit that he does seem to have those people skills.
Yes, 100%. With the caveat of of course I care that they like him. So I shouldn't say that, but do they respect him? It's like, I like a lot of guys who I know get walked all over all the time by people. I know with him, I said that. It was my first response when I tweeted it out was, this guy seems like a very nice guy, and it seems like everyone talks about him very highly privately, but he's instilled zero confidence in me that he can be a shark when it comes to a trade or a signing or getting guys for a steal or whatever it means. I don't care if people like Bob Myers. Do they respect Bob Myers? That's more what I'm worried about.
Here's a little bit of a devil's advocate, but I might believe it. If we kind of pair up I promise I'm not like being convinced. I'm just trying to play this out, okay?
As you should.
If we buy the alignment thing, right? That's like a big part of why he's being brought in, is that he's just like the right kind of orchestrator of the front office. Maybe some of the stuff that you're worried about he's on, like you were saying yesterday, like he gets on a call with Daryl Morey, or he gets on a call with Danny Ainge, or fill in the blank with a good executive around the NBA. What if it's not him? Or what if it's not that he has to be the shark in that call? I mean, if he has better relationships with cap guy Matt Tellem, scouting guy Taliaferro, who we talked about, relationships guy Bartelstein. That's why I just don't like the term alignment, because it makes it sound like it's only one person, and I don't think that's exactly what it is. But maybe it's more so that he's like kind of, a little of this, a little of that, like the chef of the whole operation. And
connector.
Yeah. Like he's Chris Paul.
Sure. I think for the most part, when it comes to guys like Morey or whoever it is talking to him, for me, it would be those people always have the interest of their teams more than anyone else's. And so I don't think just because he has a good relationship with those people that it's going to necessarily
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that I think maybe the idea is that Gregory isn't always the guy, the point person in all these different realms. He talked a lot about Bartelstein's relationships. Maybe he's gonna delegate. Say, Josh, so-and-so. Call them. Get the deal done. I'm your boss. I'm the point guard. I'm Chris Paul, but spray out to the corner. I'll hit you for a three. Let's get this going. Like, I'm not saying that's going to work, but that might be the idea.
Yeah, but if you're an opposing team, who do you call? Like, who are you calling if that's the case? Are you calling Bartelstein?
I agree, and that would speak to this quote from the Scoop B thing of it being kind of no one knows who's in charge, it's a horror movie, etc.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's great, but that might be what they are planning on.
That's their alignment. That's their vision for the team. And you're right, that might be the case. But again, it leads towards, I forgot who it was a long time ago, but it was when Sarver was in charge. People were like, we don't know who to call. We don't know who's in charge right now. I think it might have been when Sarver got in trouble and no one was really sure who was taking the reins there. I know there was an intern governor, but people had said that, like, we have no idea who we're supposed to call. And that's
the
an
Suns
issue.
did very little business at that time because the interim governor was afraid to like greenlight stuff that was going to add money and things like that. But yeah, if you listen to Gregory yesterday, he talked about how his main relationships are in college and in the grassroots. Maybe that's going to be his focus. It's a weird way to have your GM operate. I wouldn't pick it if it were up to me, but again, like we said yesterday, he's not exactly lying about how this whole setup is going to look. So
no, he did not lie. Dude's very nice.
Maybe we just take him at his word and try to piece it together from there. Speaking of coaching, he did give actually a pretty concrete answer on what he wants in the next head coach of the Phoenix Suns. We'll break down his response and what it could look like next. First today's show brought to you by Open Phone. If you're running a business, you know every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you had an urgent need, maybe for a plumber or a service provider. Regular everyday stuff. If the first person didn't answer, you didn't wait, you moved on. And that's why, no matter who you are, you need Open Phone. Open Phone is the #1 business phone system built to streamline and scale your customer communications, all from an app or on your phone or computer. Open Phone, actually, perfect example of this. We've been running around back and forth with the freaking property management company that is renting us out this home we're going to be moving into. And there's an operator, there's a leasing manager, there's a leasing assistant, there's an owner. We have all these people. We don't know who to call. We get a busy signal, the phone's off the hook, whatever kind of nonsense. Open Phone would have solved it all. I wish they would use Open Phone, and you can. And get 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. That's OPENPHONE.com/LockedOnNBA. If you have an existing number with a different service, Open Phone will port it over at no extra charge. Open Phone. No missed calls, no missed customers. All right, Ben, closing it out. I went back and listened to everything I missed, and I would say that Brian Gregory's answer about the coach was the most detail he gave on anything, which is fitting. That's step number 1 now that he's taken the job. What stuck out to you about his answer? And then I'll give my thoughts.
Well, what stuck out to me was the only thing that we got some actual clarity on. But I remembered he had talked about, one of the things I wrote down yesterday, which was high basketball IQ, shares our vision, which of course you're not going to bring in someone who doesn't want to do the same things you want to do. But what does that mean? Does that mean that they're going to have to abide by your rules, or are they going to be able to feed their opinions on it? Hold players accountable, which we've seen that with Frank Vogel over the past 2 years ago when people were literally laughing at him. And then of course, it just didn't even seem like Coach Bud cared. And then a systematic approach, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't even really know what that means. I'm assuming it just
buzzword.
means, I'm assuming what he means by that is he's coming in with his own approach to attack the game in the most basic way I can say that. But at least it was qualities. The one thing that worried me though, man, was like because this was later on, a little bit later on into this interview, I was like, is it possible that other coaches like a Johnny Bryant or a Sweeney or whoever it is might not take this job because it's seen as a little bit like a horror show, as Scoop B put it a little bit ago? So good stuff. Great. At least I got some verbs, or I guess I should say adjectives to what they want, but not great, man.
So I think the last part after everything you already said was where I was headed. He talked a lot about wanting a progressive thinker at the head coaching spot. And he didn't just use, but hold on. He didn't just use the buzzword. He went into actually a lot of detail there on that answer. He said, for instance, a lot of the smarter, more successful teams right now have completely flipped the script back to big ball and offensive rebounding really mattering in these playoff games, right? And he said, if you would ask somebody 5-7 years ago, what is going to be the best way to win a playoff game in 2025, nobody would have said, throw Evan Mobley and Jared Allen out there and win the possession game. Everyone would have said, spread the floor, pepper up threes, and get your Draymond Green in the door, right? And so I think that was what felt at least something to build off of for me as more specific of what they want this team to look like. They're not saying they want a head coach who's going to value offensive rebounding. He's just giving an example. Somebody who's going to come into an interview and sell them on, here's where I think the game is going. Because the reality is about, like you're saying, would people want to take this job? I don't know. Maybe we hear stories that this weird motley crew of executives that the Suns have cobbled together turns coaches off. That very well could happen. But on the flip side, it's kind of a blank slate of a roster. Like if you're the coach of this next Suns team, you have Booker, you probably know you have Ryan Dunn who's going to play a significant role, and that's about it. You are really going to be able to sculpt whatever you want the style of play to be. And so I like the idea that they're prioritizing somebody who's thinking ahead not just saying I'm going to dominate the way. Now, some of that was a little awkward where he's saying we don't want to do everything like everyone else. I have no idea what that means. That's gobbledygook. I don't care. But I liked some of the more specific stuff that he said, which brings us to the other specific answer that I would say he gave, where somebody had asked him, I think it was Richard Sines, said like, at Fox 10 was like, maybe not, whatever. There was another question of like, is there a team you imagine modeling it after? And of course, he said Michigan State, right? That one, what did you think of that? Not a surprise, of course. Like
you couldn't think of anything else. You couldn't think of anything else.
Well, I think that's the truth. So again, he's just telling us the friggin' straight up facts of everything, and we just kind of have to. You're not doing
yourselves any. I guess that's fair. It is totally fair. I guess if he told us one thing and went another, not great. But like,
so what did you think of that? Because my instant reaction, Ben, is there's not a ton of Michigan State guys who have been killers in the NBA. So
that's
not a one-to-one translation.
If I'm not mistaken, Michigan State has one NCAA championship title. Like, it's not like they're a light blue blood. It's like U of A, where everyone talks about U of A being a blue blood. Like UConn's much bluer than them, and no one talks about
a lot of Final
UConn
Fours.
like
they haven't gotten the job done. He doesn't always recruit the top players, and that's why I think a lot of them come to the NBA and they don't always make it because the super high level skill's not there. They're tough, they're whatever, but it's like
even like the team that they won a championship. Former Phoenix Suns Jason Richardson was highlighting that team, and he was a fine, like he was a good player in the NBA, but he wasn't like lighting up stat sheets and becoming an MVP. He was just a good offensive player.
You got Miles Bridges right now, Draymond Green, Jaren Jackson, Gary Harris, Max Christie. Obviously, we know some of the more historic examples, Zach Randolph, etc. Yeah, Magic before Izzo's time. But what do you like? Does that tell you anything about the types of players they're going to target?
I think what they're trying to allude to is the Draymond Green type of players, the Ryan Dunn type of players. There's only one Draymond Green. Muck it up, make it physical. We're not really too worried about scoring baskets because Michigan State hasn't been a team that has scored baskets in a really long time. They really are like we're just going to shove you around team. I watched a lot of Michigan State basketball this year. That's really what a lot of Michigan State was this year. And even back in 2001, it wasn't led by, or not 2001, that was when the Wildcats won it, but I think it's 98, 2000. When they won it then, again, that wasn't a team that was lighting up the scoreboard. Now it was a different type of basketball era, but still, it seems like to me they're going to look for a bunch of guys that are going to muck it up because they're going from super offensive to super hyperactive defensive, and I'm not so sure that's the best place for you to be. Oftentimes when people get into a messy breakup, they go immediately to the opposite end of the other person that they were dating, and I think that's what the Suns are doing, and that's not necessarily the right thing too. Find the good qualities that you had last year. There were a couple, not many, and then mesh them up with what you didn't have last year. It's not that hard to come up with that concept. It's just hard to make it, and it's going to take a couple years. But that's what you should be doing, not just swinging the pendulum the other direction. We're just going to turn into 90s style basketball. That's what I think they were alluding to.
Yeah, I mean, there's that's not like insanely far off from, I think, where the NBA is going, like in a really just big picture way, like the Rockets and even the Celtics, the Pistons. There's a lot of teams that I think fit that, even the Thunder, the Wolves, like using your strength, your physicality, your athleticism to impose yourself on the game, whether that is something like offensive rebounding or just making great offensive shot creators that dominate, feel you, and make it harder on them. Like that a lot of the best teams fit that identity. Heck, even the Lakers, aside from LeBron and Luka, were basically that type of team. So, like, if they find the right type of coach to modernize that a little bit and they can actually nail some of these transactions, like, I don't think they're just being dumb or misguided here. But at the same time, I think that that's giving a lot of credit versus the pretty vague, overgeneralized nothing burgers we were getting in that press conference. I just wanted to feel it out, but I'm still pretty doubtful that they executed at like the perfect level.
Ishbia is going to sit in on those head coaching interviews. I just would be curious who's going to make that decision. If it's 50-50, is it 51-49? Like, I wonder. And if that's the case, like, I wish Matt Ishbia would just pull a Jerry Jones and just be the GM and the owner so I could just have clarity on what's going on. But
I think in most cases, everything is pointing to that we should operate as if Matt Ishbia is
going to make the
final decision maker, right? I mean,
all
I don't know
right,
about
Tom
coaching
Izzo,
or whatever, but
Tom Izzo, come on down. Come on down.
Well, we all might be a little lucky that there's not like an obvious Michigan State related coaching candidate that at least I can see, but maybe take a look at the Pistons' recent history or something, because that seems to be, if it's not Michigan State, it's coming from the Pistons. So that probably explains why Chauncey we heard his name, right? And
that's a good point.
Maybe we just look at their
There's no way
staff.
Just before we end, and I know we're about to end, but there's no way they do that. There's no way they triple, quadruple down on what that mess was yesterday. Ishbia has rabbit ears. He has heard the reaction from us, PHNX, Arizona Sports, Fox 10, 12 News. He's heard it from everyone, man. There's no way they double, triple, quadruple down on some no-name head coach from Michigan. That is a no-ball scenario. Like, I don't think they're going to do that. I don't believe it. I think that they will go a flashier assistant hire in terms of a bunch of the guys that we've already talked about. I don't need to say the names again, but I don't think that they're going to do that. If they do, holy cow. We might just not even do a show that day, push it to the next day so I can calm down.
That will wrap us up. Hit follow, subscribe if you have not already. More news to come throughout the week. One more show coming for you Friday. We'll talk to you then.